Today's video is going to be a civil conversation, not the usual shitposty kind. I'm actually going to bring up a lot of quality information and draw some conclusions from it. Maybe even convincing Michael Rowlands of what I'm talking about. But before we start, I bet you wonder what I'm wearing right now. It's some Irate Bear merch. Yeah, I'm gonna be a total shill. But hey, he has some merch. He's pretty great. I'll link his channel and his store in the description down below. Anyways, on to the video. Wait, you say? You're civilly responding to Michael Rowlands and not trolling him? Yeah, I think that's the only way we can actually have a true dialogue. You guys all just troll him and make fun of him, and then he stops listening. So, I'm just gonna move on to the topic.
I don't give a fuck about my bad reputation!
I'm not actually going to use any of the video that Michael Rowlands made in this video because the runtime's already going to be very long. I have a lot of information to get through and not as much time as I'd like. Sorry about that. First things first, credit where credit is due. Michael Rowlands says that the world is complicated and not just simple. There's a lot of gray in the world, and I definitely agree with that. It's definitely something that is correct. In the video, he claims that there are more than two biological sexes. This is incorrect, and the term of sex is a little bit more gray than we'd like it to be. Biological sex is greatly based on chromosomes and karyotypes, but it's not in the way that you'd think it would be. There's not just XX and XY for karyotypes. There are plenty more, as he does say in the video. The one thing that he did fail to mention about this is that a lot of the intersex conditions are actually very similar to male and female, and most of them go on living as either a male or a female, and most people wouldn't really notice. You would just think, oh, maybe that person looks a little bit more like the other gender. It's not really a huge deal. The one exception to this is oviposities. It's actually the rarest of the intersex conditions. It's the most confusing. It is what people would call a true hermaphrodite. Most of the people with this condition are raised as males. Some are raised as females as well, but either way, there's actually quite a low incidence of mental health issues among these people, which is very good. I think that's a great thing that people could actually have something like this and not actually have it cripple them entirely. On the other end of the intersex spectrum, there are two intersexes that really are just an enhancement of their own respective genders. There's triple X, and then there is diplo Y, both of which enhance those features that would appear in males or females. You would think with a term like intersex, there would be a more cut and dry line where the male would end and the female would begin, but there really isn't. It kind of flows into each other a little bit, which is why, along with the infrequency of these conditions, I believe that there are really only two genders. Though I am no expert on the subject, I do kind of understand how karyotypes define one's sex. It has to do with the blood, and how many of the blood cells actually carry these chromosomes with the karyotypes. For a better understanding of this, we'll have to look at bell curves and how they work. Bell curves represent distributions of traits. With human traits, they will always fall into a bell curve sort of shape, given enough of a sample size, which is very good. It allows for people to predict how many people would have a certain thing. You see how it's narrow at the ends, and in the middle, it's very tall, correct? On either end, there is going to be less people, because people tend to fall in to an average, to a section that will cover pretty much 50% of the population. If you were to take the karyotypes of males and females and plot them on a graph like this, you would actually see that there would be two kind of bells there. One would represent female and one would represent male, and the female would obviously be closer to the triple X or XX side, but the male side would be closer to the Y side. However, these two bells would actually be touching at some point and overlapping. This is an area where more intersex people would happen because they have a lot of the karyotypes from opposite genders. It's a pretty good explanation of how most of the intersex conditions actually occur. This technique could also be used to define gender. The interesting part is that the two actual bells would be closer together in the case of gender, because there are actually a lot more men who have slightly more feminine traits, and there's a lot more women who have slightly more masculine traits. And I think this is where these non-binary people come in, is they seem to fit in where the two bells overlap. They actually just think that they're not the media's portrayed average manly man or girly girl. So, you know what they do? They say, I'm not that. You really are still a man, though. You could identify as whatever you want. I really don't give a damn. But people seem to conflate gender and sexuality as well. A lot of these people who are in the non-binary spectrum tend to be in very strange sexualities as well, like pansexual, etc., etc. I don't mean to stereotype, but that is what I see. And from what I see there, it seems as if they are conflating their sexuality and their gender. Another thing I've noticed is there tends to be a lot more non-binary people than trans people. That's very interesting, considering that trans people have been around for a very long time, and non-binary is quite a new thing. I think that the whole non-binary movement actually takes away credibility from trans people. I think people who are actually trans have a very difficult time when the public sees all of these people saying, I'm not a man or a woman, I'm something else. They start to look at trans people in the same way and think they're absolutely insane. I do think some non-binary people actually have difficulty with their gender. I think they're just having a little bit of dysphoria. It's nothing to the point of where they're actually trans and actually have an abnormal psychology. I'll talk about abnormal in a moment. But I do feel that there is a section of the non-binary people who are malingering. Malingering is when you fake the symptoms of a mental illness or an illness. I believe they're malingering, subconsciously, some of them anyways. But I do think there are also some who are looking to gain power over others through saying that they are oppressed, and they want privileges over other people. Yes, it is the argument that we do bring up a lot, but I still think it has merit in this case. Coming back to the word abnormal, it actually can have a good use. Though in everyday conversation it may have negative connotation, if you look at where it's used in the psychology world, it's actually just defined as something that does not fit the norm. It doesn't mean that anything is grotesque, strange, anything with negative connotations. It is a very neutral word, even though it does describe some mental illnesses that aren't the greatest. Do I think that the word abnormal should be used in a pejorative way or a harmful way? No, I don't think it should. But the difference between should and can is very different. I would rather let people say that someone is abnormal than to not allow them to say it. Because when you stop allowing people to say things, people stop being able to express ideas and dissent. And I think dissent is one of the best mechanisms for making ideas better. Let's give an example of properly giving someone dissent and not completely just shitposting and insulting them. Look at this. Let's see the tweets that I sent to Michael Rowlands when I was going to talk about this video. You know what? I'm pretty civil. He's pretty civil. He just wanted to make sure that I wasn't a complete jackass. And fair enough, he probably gets enough of those. And even though I don't agree with a lot of what he has to say, I do have more respect for him now because he's actually trying to actively listen to what I'm saying. I would have included Christy Winters talking about the whole biology part in my script, had I been able to know that she made a video on it. It's pretty hard to have a conversation from the other side of a block wall now, isn't it? But hey, that's everything I have to talk about in this video. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. Comment below and tell me what you thought. Tell me what you think about gender. Is it binary with kind of gray aspects of genders, or is gender a wonderful, lovely spectrum of things? And as always, have a great day.